Hello and welcome to the Train the Trainer course, Module 1. You can start the video when you're ready and remember that you can pause and replay or rewind at any time. It might be a good idea to have a pen and paper or a device to write onto for some of the written tasks and activities. Remember you've got your handbook as well, which is editable, which you can use for this. You should have been sent a Time 1 form to fill in prior to the session starting. If you haven't filled that in, please pause the video and fill the Time 1 form in before starting the course. There will be breaks set throughout this Module 1, but if you need to, please just pause and take a step away from the screen. Let's go on to the course aims. So the course aims are to increase understanding of student mental health and the position of the student workshop within higher education. We also want to equip you as trainers to deliver the student workshop to students on campus. And we want to ensure that you understand your requirements as a Student Minds trainer. So the course will cover the following things. Module 1 is an overview of student mental health and the challenges that students face within higher education. Module 2 is an overview of the student workshop. And Module 3 is a live workshop which takes you through the Student Minds trainer requirements. So how this module works. For Module 1, when you see this symbol to the right, it means that there's a task to do. This may require you to pause the video and give you time to actually complete that task. There's space in your handbook to do so, or if you want to use pen and paper, you can do. Where there are videos that play, these will play automatically. You can view this video separately in a web browser if you want to. There are links to the videos in your handbook. We're going to start the session by doing our icebreaker task, or our first task of the module. So I want you to pause the video and take a couple of minutes to think about if there were no limits and you had a whole day to yourself, what would you do with that day? So pause the video, write down your perfect day. You might want to actually draw a scene, and there is space in your handbook to do so. And then we'll come back together. Welcome back. Hopefully you had a couple of minutes to think about your perfect day and you've managed to write a few things down. Just bear this in mind, as this is an activity that we will come back to when we talk through the student workshops, and it's one of the icebreakers that we recommend running for the students. We're now going to move on to who we are as a charity and what our vision is, and a little bit about the Student Minds network. So Student Minds is the UK's student mental health charity. We have a clear vision that no student should be held back by their mental health. We aim to empower students to build their own mental health toolkit to support themselves and their peers through university life and beyond. We also aim to challenge the higher education sector, the health sector, and the government to make student health a priority. Together, we're improving university communities so that every student gets the mental health support they need to reach their goals. The Student Minds Network, we work with over 110 higher education institutions throughout the UK. We have quite a few different websites. We have a Student Minds blog. We have lots of social media accounts. We have over 41,000 followers across our social media accounts. Visitors to our websites, we have in the past few years, we've had over 155,000 visitors to our websites. We also run a campaigns day called Uni Mental Health Day. And on Uni Mental Health Day in 2024, we reached 4.8 million people. We'll tell you a little bit more about our impact through this video.
Starting university brings many new pressures. around 40% of students may now meet the criteria for a diagnosable mental health problem. At Student Minds, we want to ensure that every student can thrive. We empower students to look after their mental health, help university communities to prevent students from experiencing difficulties, and ensure timely support exists for those who need it. We will keep fighting to make sure no student feels alone. This year, students' mental health was particularly impacted by the coronavirus pandemic. In March 2021, 29% of students said they were always or often lonely, compared to 7% of the general population. We developed a digital platform, Student Space, to help students find the support they needed. We work with students and clinicians to provide support on dealing with common issues, ranging from managing worry about money to navigating university as a minority student. We work with Shout and The Mix to give thousands of students someone to talk to. Some student communities were more impacted by the pandemic. Trans students were more likely to say their mental health had been affected, whilst Black mixed and Asian mixed students were more likely than white students to report financial challenges. We work with organisations led by people from the communities they represent to provide specialised support. This year, we have also created spaces for students to share their experiences and lead the fight for change. Men are less likely to seek help than women. To address this, we supported male students to create a podcast opening up the conversation on men's mental health at university. Popular episodes covered graduation, sport, and experiences of LGBTQ+ students. We supported our student editorial team to run the Student Minds blog, where students and recent graduates share their experiences of university life. 91 blogs were posted on topics such as dealing with loss and growing up in a racialised society. We used our social media to engage our supporters and share students' experiences. This year, our Instagram following increased by 101%, helping us to support many more people. We also supported university communities to develop their knowledge of student mental health, support themselves and those around them, and create cultural change. 75% of students turn to a friend when experiencing mental health difficulties. Yet 60% of those supporting friends said it affected their quality of life. We provided workshops on how to support friends whilst looking after yourself. For one attendee, the workshop has helped them to look at others' problems with empathy rather than sympathy. We also work with university staff to create change across the whole institution. 3 universities were involved in the pilot of the University Mental Health Charter programme, which supported them to assess their current approach to mental health and take steps to improve. Over 40 universities will be taking part in the full programme this year. Student unions play a vital role in enabling students to make connections at university. We help students' unions develop their approach to mental health and better support their student communities. A staff member said, "It's been really important to our understanding. We did not have anything like this before." Many students live in purpose-built accommodation, and accommodation staff can be the first person to notice a student is struggling. We trained 101 staff members to recognise problems and help students get support. We also amplified students' voices to those with the ability to create change nationally. We were part of a group led by the university's Minister on students' mental health, raising the issues affecting students, such as the need for further investment for students experiencing financial difficulties. We also brought together over 50 organisations working in higher education and led influential conversations about what students have been going through. Our insights are informed by conversations with students and professionals. This year, we added 2 student trustees to our board, ensuring students are at the heart of our work at every level. None of this would have been possible without the people who've worked alongside us this year. Thank you to you all. There's still a lot more to do. We hope you'll join us in 2022 and be part of the movement to ensure that every student is able to thrive at university.
Hopefully hopefully that gave you an insight into the impact and the work that we do at Student Minds. We're now going to have a look at student mental health and go through some quiz questions to get you thinking about that. After each question, you may want to pause the video to give you time to think about your answer and then continue on to the next question. There is space in your handbook to write down the answers, along with all of the sources and the reports used as well. Let's have a look at question 1. Question 1. What percentage of mental health problems are established by the age of 25? A, 20%, B, 45%, C, 75%, or D, 80%? Question 2. Of the 600,000 people who applied to university via UCAS in 2023, how many disclosed a mental health condition as a disability? A, 45,000, B, 20,000, or C, 120,000? Question 3. What percentage of students say their mental health declined after starting university? A, 10%, B, 26%, or C, 39%? Question 4. What percentage of students say they felt lonely always or often, and the percentage for the general population is 6%? Is it A, 25%, or B, 12%? Question 5. According to Student Mind's latest survey, which was conducted in November 2022, what is the most common source of stress for university students? A, relationships, or B, performing well in coursework, exams, and assessments? Let's have a look at some of the answers. So the answer to question 1, what percentage of mental health problems are established by the age of 25, is C, 75%. Question 2, of the 600,000 people who applied to university via UCAS in 2023, how many disclosed a mental health condition as a disability? And that was A, 45,000 students. This can also be seen as 7.5%. This has risen from 2015-2016, when it was only 2% of first-year university students disclosed that they had a mental health difficulty. So there has been a rise. Question 3. What percentage of students say their mental health declined after starting university? And the answer is C, 39%. We consistently see a fairly split response to this question, and this particular survey found that 32% reported no change and 24% said that their mental health improved, whereas the remainder actually preferred not to say. And this is from the CBIL Student Mental Health Study in 2023. Question 4. What percentage of students said they felt lonely always or often? And the percentage for the general population is 6%. The answer is A, 25%. HEPI found in their most recent survey that 25% of students felt lonely most or all of the time, compared to only 6% of the general population. And feeling lonely all or most of the time was a particular problem for Black students, LGBT+ students, and students with a disability. Question 5. According to Student Mind's latest survey, which was conducted in November 2022, what is the most common source of stress for university students? The most common cause of stress is B, performing well in coursework, exams, and assessments. Alongside this, there was also keeping up with studies, managing time, and managing money. That brings us to the end of the quiz. Remember that at any time you can pause, stop, and replay any parts of this module, and that in your handbook you can find the links to the reports and resources used for the quiz. This brings us to our first break. I recommend taking 2 minutes away from the screen just to stand and stretch, and then come back to the video when you're ready. Welcome back from your break. We're now going to go on to how we talk about mental health at Student Minds. So there are certain ways at Student Minds that we talk about mental health. This may be through our programs, through our communications, and in the work we produce. We'll talk you through some of the definitions that we use and some of the models of mental health that we use as well. It is useful to note that these are not the only definitions and that they're also often contested. So firstly, we're going to go on to what you understand by the term mental health. So take some time, pause the video, and write down an answer to this question. Your answer might be in the form of a spider diagram, a list of words or bullet points, and there is space in the handbook to fill this in. So answer the question, what do you understand by the term mental health? So these are some possible definitions of mental health. These were created by Student Minds during the charter creation, working with mental health professionals, students and staff members. So we've got the mental health refers to a full spectrum of experience, ranging from good mental health to mental illness. Good mental health is feeling good, responding appropriately, positively contributing to your community, and the absence of illness. Whereas poor mental health is individuals experiencing levels of emotional and or psychological distress, which is beyond their ability to effectively manage. The language of mental health can often be shifting and can be quite confusing. So terms such as mental illness, mental health problems, and mental health difficulties can be used as if they have different meanings or as if they mean the same thing. Mental health and well-being are often used to mean the same thing, but within different frameworks, and they actually may represent completely separate concepts. We accept that alternative definitions may be more appropriate, helpful, or accurate at other occasions. Let's move on to well-being. So again, pause the video and write down an answer to this question. What do you understand by the term well-being? Again, this could be a list of words, a spider diagram or bullet points, and there is space in your handbook to fill this in. So the definition of well-being that we have is that well-being encompasses a wider framework of which mental health is an integral part, but which also includes physical and social well-being. So if we're talking specifically about student well-being, we recognise that in addition to the above, students' engagement with academic learning is a key component part of their experience and also makes a significant contribution to their well-being. We're going to explain these terms a little bit further by looking at the mental health continuum. At Student Minds, we use this model to explain mental health because we feel like it explains mental health in an effective and simple way. We've also had quite positive feedback on this model from our various training programs and student workshops. So we like to think of mental health as a continuum, and that we all have mental health, and that sometimes our mental health is better than at other times, and we can all move around the continuum. We try not to draw binary lines between well and unwell, and the point at which an individual's mental health difficulties might become a problem is the point at which they feel their mental health is becoming problematic for them. We have a video to explain this further.
What is mental health? So when you hear the term mental health, you might be quick to think about mental health difficulties. And people used to think of mental health in this way as somebody being either really well or somebody being ill, but actually that doesn't reflect what people's experiences are. We should be thinking of mental health as a continuum, and we can think about it in 2 dimensions.
On this continuum, we have mental health difficulties. Over this side of the continuum, we might have people who never identify as having experienced a mental health difficulty. As we move towards the other end, you may find people who do feel they have personal experience, and maybe they have a specific diagnosis. An eating disorder or psychosis could be an example. The second dimension to this continuum is our mental well-being. Well-being refers to how we are generally feeling about life, our ability to cope with the normal daily stresses, to be productive and to contribute to relationships, be those with housemates, with sports team members, or in an academic group project. So with that framework in mind, let's look at a few examples. Ben plays rugby for the first team. He's had a diagnosis of psychosis, so that may put him towards the far end of this horizontal axis. Ben does, however, have lots of strategies in place to help him manage these difficulties. With the right medication and a strong support network of family, friends and professionals, Ben is really flourishing and his mental well-being is really high. Now let's take another example. Natalie has no diagnosis of a mental health difficulty and doesn't feel she's ever experienced one. But it's exam time, a very stressful time of year, and in order to prioritise her revision, Natalie's cut back on doing the things she enjoys. So she's not spending as much time with friends, she's not going for her morning swims, and she's realised that she's starting to not feel so great. Her mental well-being has really started to drop.
So, what does this tell us? Just as we all have physical health, we all have mental health, and we're all going to find ourselves somewhere on that continuum. When you think about the range of factors affecting student mental health, student lifestyle, being away from home and friends, it's really clear that we can move around. We can recognise that we're all going to find things difficult at different points, so all need to be mindful of how we look after our own well-being. And I think the other part of it is it's a really powerful message that if you're coming to university with experiences of mental health difficulties, you can have the right support in place, the right strategies, be really flourishing and doing well in higher education. So hopefully this is a helpful model for us to bear in mind when we're looking after our own mental health and supporting our friends.
Hopefully the video helped to explain the mental health continuum a little bit further. Feel free to look at the video again in your own time as well. Now we're going to go on to talking about mental health safely. And at Student Minds, there's some phrasing that we use when talking with students. You might find it quite useful to use these terms or this wording. Again, it's good to note here that these are open to interpretation and that we are working towards a common shared language around mental health. The first thing is to focus on feelings, not descriptions of behaviours, methods or trauma. So talking about feelings and what the experience means to someone. Sharing these emotions might be helpful for other students feeling a similar way. And also avoid mentioning specific things to do with self-harm, weight loss or suicide methods. This could be triggering for those experiencing mental health difficulties, and it could provide ideas or an unhealthy point of comparison. We say to avoid using numbers, so any kind of numbers such as BMIs, calories, mortality rates, because these could be quite distressing or unhelpful for people that are affected by certain mental health difficulties. When talking about suicide, be mindful, and some examples of appropriate phrases are died by suicide or took their own life. We don't use the phrase committed suicide, as this implies judgment or persecution. Take care with the adjectives that you use. We encourage the use of person-first language, so for example, a person with bipolar disorder, rather than a bipolar person. Also, please avoid using adjectives associated with mental illness inappropriately. So examples of this might include crazy or psychotic or maniac. So this is just some phrasing that we use at Student Minds and you might find helpful during the student workshops. Next, we have a video which was created as part of our Men's Mental Health project, where we worked with Leeds University Union, the University of Huddersfield, and the University of Manchester over a couple of years to co-produce initiatives which aim to improve male mental health. One of the main outputs of this was our Mentality podcast, which is available on our website. This video goes through why we should talk about mental health.
I'm interested in mental health because it's been something that I've always been aware of with people around me, friends, family, but going into the first year of university, it was something that I kind of neglected myself. I got to a point where I let my well-being deteriorate a bit, spending a lot of time on my own at certain points and not really opening up to friends and just kind of struggling quite quietly until I kind of got to a certain point where I just kind of blurted it all out to my mates, and then I realised that there was so much support around me that I just hadn't noticed. And ever since that, I've kind of changed my habits a lot. I talk to my mates all the time.
Looking around at my peers at university, I felt there was a problem that was often overlooked and that needs to be tackled head on.
2 years ago, a friend of mine and fellow teammate, tragically took his own life. And sort of in the wake of his death, it sort of made me a lot more aware of my own mental well-being and also the mental well-being of others.
Over the past year, I've realised how easy it is to struggle through your first year at uni, university in general, and sort of go through some really tough times and finding it difficult to find somebody to just have a small chat with, and finding advice and helping yourself and helping others through difficult times.
The reason that I'm interested in it is because I don't want anyone else to grow up like I did, not knowing about it.
Now that we have given you a bit of an overview about what Student Minds does and how we talk about mental health, I'm going to give you some context into why we do this work in the higher education sector. Due to your roles, it's likely that you've already got a good understanding and knowledge of this, so we'll be drawing on your experience as university staff members throughout the course as well. The student journey task. We want you to have a think about the factors that are associated with student experience and journey. So pause the video and spend 5 to 10 minutes making a copy of this diagram. Add on to the journey any challenges that may occur throughout the university or student experience. Think about transitions into university, perhaps leaving home, and then all the way through to transitions out of university, so further study, graduate jobs, etc. There is also a copy of the diagram in your handbook if you want to use that to fill in. So take 5 to 10 minutes to complete this activity and then come back to the video. So you should have a fairly full journey there. Some of the challenges that you might have written down include making friends, relationships, financial difficulties, managing money, exam, coursework stress, supporting housemates, friends. I think it's worth noting here that there is no one typical student journey, and this really changes as per the student. So when we get onto the student workshop, you will see that the student journey activity, you can use different case studies here as well. Let's go on to looking at some prevalence and disclosure statistics. So we know that 1 in 4 adults experience mental health difficulties at some point during their lifetime, and 1 in 6 experience symptoms at any one time. Our research suggests that around 1 in 4 students have received a diagnosis for a mental health condition, but many more, around half, self-disclose mental health issues. I.e., if we say, "Do you have a mental health issue?" half of them say yes. When we used the Warwick Edinburgh Mental Wellbeing Score Scale, we found that around 1 in 3 students had poor mental well-being. We know that 75% of students who has experienced mental health difficulties disclose these to a fellow student. 7.5% of UCAS applicants disclose a mental health condition as a disability. And this has risen from 2015-2016, when it was only 2% of first-year university students who disclosed. Just under half of students who report experiencing a mental health condition choose not to disclose it to their higher education institution. Our Insights Manager, Nicola, will take us through some understanding around student mental health inequalities. If you want to learn more about this, please visit our research and reports page on our website. I'll hand over to Nicola.
Hi, I'm Nicola, the Insight Manager at Student Minds, and I'm here today to talk a little bit about inequalities and intersectionality. So we know that all students will hold various different identities when they come into university and during their time at university, which are in relation to things like their gender, their sexual orientation, age, disability, religion, ethnicity, disability, and so on. And these identities might actually shift and change during their time at university, but what's really important to remember is that these identities will shape a student's experience of things like their education and also things like their mental health, how they understand their mental health, and how they interact with things like support services or their peers and communities. So when we think about inequalities and intersectionality, it's really important to take an intersectional lens and consider the ways in which different inequalities might interact with each other in a way that forms and shapes somebody's identity and their experiences. So, for example, a middle-class, white, straight, cisgendered man will probably have quite different experiences throughout society and throughout education as someone who might be an LGBTQ plus black woman from a working class background, for example. Those are quite sweeping generalizations, of course, but the main thing to remember is that everyone will have different identities, and the ways that those intersect will be different for everybody and will really shape and create quite a personal experience of education and mental health. But there are some common themes that lots of people experience if they are part of marginalised communities. And at Student Minds, we've done some research to understand what those common experiences are, how they interact with mental health, how they interact with education, and how they might shape someone's experiences of things like accessing support whilst at university. So some experiences we've explored at Student Minds are the LGBTQ plus student experience, the international student experience, the experiences of part-time distance learner and commuter students, and also the experiences of Black students and ethnically marginalised students. So to find out more, visit our website and have a look at our research reports, where we really consider the intersectionality of students' identities and how this interacts with their mental health.
Hopefully that gave you a little bit more insight into student mental health inequalities. Like I said earlier, if you want to learn any more about that, please do visit our research and reports page on our website. So why peer support is important? As previously mentioned in the prevalence and disclosure stats, we know that 75% of students who had experienced mental health difficulties disclosed these to a fellow student. So we know that students rely on students. They are most likely to speak to friends or peers when they're experiencing difficulties. We know that students make a difference, so having good social networks and peer contacts has a protective influence against mental health difficulties. And we know that the students have the knowledge, so empowering students to know what support is available and how to access it is important so that they can support their peers. And that is what our student workshops aim to do. Let's have a little look at the impact of our workshops. So over the last 4 years, 753 staff have gone through our training programs. 8,317 students have attended our student workshops, which have been run by our trainers. In our active trainer network, we have over 350 staff across over 120 institutions throughout the UK. 95% of students felt confident or very confident in their skills to support a friend or a teammate who might be struggling, after attending our student workshops run by our trainers. And a quote from one of our staff members that went on the course. I really enjoyed the course. It was engaging, interactive, and will certainly have a beneficial impact for the students at my institution. So that brings us to the end of Module 1. So the course aim for Module 1 was to increase the understanding of student mental health and the position of the student workshop within higher education. So now you've come to the end of the session. What is next? Remember, you can rewind back to any parts of this module and use your handbook to refresh your memory. Perhaps take a look at the handbook to reflect on any of the activities that we've done in this session. Next is Module 2. Module 2, you'll watch the run through of the student workshop and also make sure you download the trainer outline to read along. We'll see you in Module 2.